Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to the Grime and Bros podcast, where I try and fill you in on the news and culture and politics and give you my thoughts. It's June 22nd, 2022, and today I'm going to be covering some things that have happened over the past week. I'm going to talk about Juneteenth and its origin, gun laws that have moved forward. I'm going to talk a little bit about separation of church and state, the new Pixar movie that's flopped, and open border crisis. So strap in. Got a lot to talk about today. Don't forget to like this video. Subscribe to this channel if you like what you see, so you can get updates on new videos, and share this with your friends. Let's get started. What is Juneteenth, and when did America abolish slavery? The first Juneteenth celebration was June 19th, 1866. This marked the one-year celebration of Texas slaves who received the news of their freedom. April 9th, 1865, after the end of the American Civil War, there were still remnants of slavery, in particular the state of Texas, where there were still some 200,000 slaves that had either already been there or were moved there from other states during the war. But a couple of months later, June 19th, Major General Gordon Granger and 2,000 soldiers came to deliver the news to those who were unaware of the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation, as many of you know, was an executive order signed by Abraham Lincoln in 1863, right in the middle of the Civil War between the Union and the Confederate states that had seceded from the Union. This executive order freed nearly 3.5 million slaves who were in Confederate states. Now, interestingly, as a side note, the Emancipation Proclamation only proposed to free slaves that were in the Confederate states, not the Union states. The executive order also explicitly excluded Southern states that had already been captured by the North at that time. So, no freedom for the slaves of the North, or Southern territories already captured. So why? Why did Abraham Lincoln do this? Well, this was, in President Lincoln's words, quote, a fit and necessary war measure for suppressing the rebellion, end of quote. It was a tactic to turn Southern slaves into freedom fighters for the Union, for the North. So we mentioned what Juneteenth represents, but when did America officially abolish slavery? The Emancipation Proclamation is often thought of as the thing that abolished slavery, but we can see here that this is not the case, since this did nothing to free the slaves in the North. However, it most certainly was the biggest component in American history that got the wheels moving towards fulfilling the nation's founding principles. By the way, the Civil War was largely fought for the preservation of the Union. It wasn't all about slavery. In fact, the North had some 500,000 slaves themselves. Also, indentured servitude continued far after the Civil War. So, are we to say slavery ended? When are we to say slavery ended? What was it, the Emancipation Proclamation? Was it Juneteenth? Well, okay. On December 6, 1865, the 13th Amendment was ratified in the U.S. Constitution that states, quote, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction, end of quote. So, you can see here, technically, even after the 13th Amendment was ratified in December of 1865, there were still grounds where someone could become enslaved, I suppose you could call it that. That being if you were duly convicted. So I suppose you could kind of see that, think of that as a prison maybe, even. But, so slavery was mostly ended, except for as a punishment for a crime, if you want to look at it that way. We could just, suppose we could call it prison. But this was the landmark of all sorts of things. 3 years later, in 1868, we got the 14th Amendment, which expanded citizen rights. And then in 1870, the 15th Amendment was ratified in the U.S. Constitution, which allowed all Americans to vote, no matter the race, color, or previous condition of servitude. All right, this was 5 years after the Civil War, though. So, wait. We passed June 19th, 1865. So let's recap. 1861, Civil War breaks out, and both North and South have slaves. 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation leaves slaves in the North, but frees them in the South. 1865, April, the Civil War ends, but slavery is still the law of the land in the border states. 1865, June 19th, the day that remaining slaves in Texas hear of their freedom. Nonetheless, slavery was still not abolished by the United States. 1865, December, 6 months after the Civil War had ended, and a couple of months after the recognition from slaves in Texas, finally through the ratification, so this was 1865 December, finally through the ratification of the 13th Amendment, the United States of America officially abolished slavery. So, as history stands, I would say the abolition of slavery was recognized by America in its founding. It was brought to the forefront by the Emancipation Proclamation. And the abolishment of slavery in America was brought to fruition in December 1865 by way of the ratification of the 13th Amendment. Now, back to Juneteenth. I don't have anything against celebrating good things, and as far as I can tell, June 19th, 1865 was a great day in American history. So was July 4th, 1776, for comparable reasons. The problem that I've seen is not with Juneteenth itself, but those that would use it as a prop for their own twisted ideology, who's led many to be confused about what Juneteenth even is. Juneteenth has been used as a weapon by white leftists, usually to shame or virtue signal, not out of celebration. It's been used as propaganda to poison the black American mind with victimhood mentality, to tell black Americans that the cops are out to kill them. Hear me out. Father's Day has been around for 50 years now, I believe. Wow. Juneteenth landed on Father's Day this year. That's only the second time in 50 years. Pretty cool, huh? Riddle me this. Here you have a great opportunity to unite Americans and put a focus on the fatherlessness crisis, that we have in this nation. Yet all we get are people belly aching about whether or not they're going to get a paid day off. In fact, empirical data shows that fatherlessness disproportionately affects black Americans. So you would have think that Democrats would have tried to bring people together in that way. So why does Black Lives Matter want to destroy the nuclear family then? And by the way, in America, this is a massive problem for families just in general, white and black. All I'm saying is, if Democrats really cared, if they really wanted healing, really wanted reconciliation, they wouldn't go through and encourage, rioting through the city and hurting the people that they claim to want to help in the first place. So, speaking of Democrats, America's drowning in left-wing propaganda, and people are trying to come up for air. The new Pixar movie, Lightyear, which is part of the Toy Story franchise, bombed on its opening day. It was projected to gross between 70 to 85 million, but instead it only turned some 51 million. Disney dumped 200 million into this movie. Okay, so why did the movie flop? Firstly, there was an impact when they announced that instead of the beloved Tim the Toolman Allen as the voice for Buzz Lightyear, they casted Chris Evans. Tim Allen was the original Buzz Lightyear, throughout the Toy Story films, but he's also a known conservative, which is a main factor in why the woke beast couldn't have it. Hollywood ain't gonna have no conservatives. No traditional values allowed, yet somehow they also preach inclusivity. So they gave the role to Captain Anti-America, Chris Evans. So secondly, though, while the film bombed so hard, and is still bombing, the marketing of the film was heavily centered around the fact that Disney was going to include a same-sex kissing scene. The scene had originally been cut from the film, but the people who work at Disney and approve of child grooming, namely the LGBTQ-LMNOP community, along with Democrats, rallied against Disney for removing the scene. This was around the time of Governor Ron DeSantis passing a bill that would stop teachers from teaching about sexuality and transgenderism to children in kindergarten up to third grade without telling the parents, without the parents' knowledge. Naturally, the radical Democrats, along with the legacy news media, lied about the bill and pushed false information on purpose. They labeled the bill the, quote, "Don't Say Gay bill." And all of a sudden, you've seen the rest of the pathetic woke Hollywood celebrities come pouring out to virtue signal by saying, gay, 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 gay. Very inventive, these people. These stupid circus monkeys on the silver screen think that they speak for you and I, but they have absolutely no clue what real life actually is. I mean, their whole life consists of acting like someone else. They live in a bubble with their elite class friends, and they give each other awards every year, and then subsist off each other's refuse, that being their flawed reality, or their flawed ideology, rather, all while they wag their fingers at us. Check this out. Chris Evans, Captain Anti-America that I was mentioning before, who played the voice of Buzz Lightyear in the new movie, spoke out about the film's poor turnout. He said that anyone who has a problem with the same-sex kiss is an idiot. He went on, and I think he said that they would go extinct like dinosaurs or something. I don't know. These people are geniuses, right? We like I said. He went on to babble about it further and said, quote, and I tried to do this the way that he did it. It was pretty funny. He looked humiliating. He looked like a moron. He was America's story has been the human story, one of constant awakening and growth, and that makes us good. This guy's an idiot. Clearly a genius. I mean, is that what is it? That's what I said, right? Please stop giving them your money. They don't deserve you. Give your money to institutions and people that support your beliefs. Anyway, yet another, classic story, where the left ruined something that it touches. And also another story about how Disney is not doing too hot on their whole, child grooming policy pushing streak, Brutal for them. Good, though. Let's give our money to people that actually support our values, and let's protect our children. And no matter how that little sliver of the woke mob wants to come, after everybody, America is finally standing up, and I don't think it looks like this is where people are getting tired of it. People don't want their kids learning these things in schools, without the parents' knowledge. And it's our kids, and the schools have told the parents that it's their kids openly. And they're going to find out they're dead wrong. So, anyway, as you know, there were some 216,000 illegal migrants in April, which was a record. Well, the numbers are out. Another 222,000 illegal immigrants were apprehended at the border this past May. This is the third month in a row, I think, that record has been broken. It might be more than that. But just to give you, even a better idea of what that looks like, that's 7,000 crossings a day. There have been 1.3 million apprehended since October. Since Biden took office, there have been some 3 million crossings, probably more. The numbers have been record-breaking. We expect here soon, once Title 42 comes down, the 7,000 crossing a day will easily double. Title 42 was a COVID measure, by the way, if you don't remember. Title 42 was a COVID measure set in place by the Trump administration to detain illegals due to the spread of COVID-19. It's a small Band-Aid on the dam that's about to give. Thanks to the purposefully reckless policies by the Biden administration that removed the Remain in Mexico policy that had been shown to lower illegal immigration immensely, those are the facts. Joe Biden and his cronies, the Democrats, the fake legacy news media, and the corrupt 3- and 4-letter departments that have been terrorizing Americans with their bad ideas and their incompetent actions are at the center of this blame. DOH. Alejandro Mayorkas. Don't forget Biden. Don't forget, Biden is busing illegal immigrants into different parts of the country, often in the middle of the night. This directly affects you. The system is broken. When the census goes out, you remember filling out the census? When the census goes out and illegals fill it out, because they're encouraged to, that census, when they fill that census out, no, they can't vote, or at least we like to think that that's not happening. But I'll tell you what does happen. The census is used to assign the number of congressional seats in that state. The more seats a state has, the more power it wields, congressionally. Do you see why in a free and fair election this could be an issue? If California is a sanctuary state, which it is, then they get more power? How can we trust other states not following the rules? This is bad. A large caravan containing 15,000 is on the way. People coming from Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua. There are also Haitians, Salvadorians, Hondurans, Guatemalans, and even citizens of India, Bangladesh, and several African countries. Russia also. How do you like that? The Mexican president, don't forget, working with the cartels to move these migrants and drugs and the sex trafficking. Let's not forget his words to us, just recently when he was criticized for his kind words to the cartels after they ran off Mexican armed forces, shooting at him. He had this to say about that, if you don't remember. Quote, We take care of the members of the armed forces, the National Guard, but we also take care of the members of the gangs. They are human beings too. This is a different policy. He said he was gonna, hug them. That was his solution. Hugs, not bullets. And he doubled down on that as well. Y'all stay safe out there, and I'll try and keep you updated on the border crisis going on. Getting crazy. Let's see. I wanted to talk a little bit about the separation of church and state. I was thinking about this recently, so I decided to write a couple of things down about it. Should the church play a part in politics? In short, I believe the answer is yes, but why? And what's the big deal about that? Well, aside from the obvious decline in American culture, the system itself was built from divine influence. And as with any civilization, when it loses its core principles and pursues unsound doctrine or ideology, that civilization suffers greatly or dissolves completely. Now, clearly, this isn't the only factor in what prolongs a civilization's lifespan, but it is, no doubt, a main factor in bringing up and maintaining a thriving civilization. So, separation of church and state. The majority of Americans have heard of this, but most Americans do not know much about it and even think that it's actually in the Constitution. It's not. The Founding Fathers never actually intended for church and state to be 100% separate. In fact, they knew exactly how integral religion was to the new republic. Thomas Jefferson spoke in a letter about government staying out of the affairs of the church. The idea wasn't to keep church from participating in government. It was to keep the government from oppressing the church or establishing a national religion. Unfortunately, in 1947, a Supreme Court decision which used Thomas Jefferson's letter to justify cutting off God and government altogether. Not the Constitution, they used Thomas Jefferson's letter. A decision made that said under the First Amendment, neither a state nor the federal government can pass laws which aid one religion, aid all religions, or prefer one religion over another. This eventually led to another court decision to strike down things like prayer in schools, and there are plenty of other sections of public life that have been sanitized of God and ultimately, morality. We can see that that's what it decays into. So, should the church play a part in politics? Absolutely. I know a lot of Christians like to shy away from it because they think that it's outside of the realm of religion or that God doesn't care about politics or even that it doesn't matter because God has a plan, which he does. Let me inform those that feel this way. All throughout the Bible, from beginning to end, the stories were weaved in and out of the politics of the time and the place that it speaks of. In fact, many of the main figures in the Bible were directly in politics, and God used them in that way. Joseph was second in command of Egypt. Daniel was King Nebuchadnezzar's advisor. David, that killed Goliath, was made king after King Saul. David's son, Solomon, was king. God has never shied away from politics or anything for that matter. And yes, God does have a plan, but his plan is already set and accomplished. So you have to decide whether or not you want to take part in his plan, as far as politics goes. Not to say that's his only plan for you. But those who are called, don't be afraid to step into that. I mean, it's obvious that God is involved in everything that his creation does. So, for those who are against the notion that the church would be exempt from the government, the Christian church throughout history has done more good than any institution that's ever existed, including the governments combined. Dennis Prager, a good man and a devout Jew, even he has claimed Christianity has done more good for the Western world than Judaism. He's not a Christian. Dennis Prager, who I believe describes himself politically as liberal. He's old school liberal, before liberalism had radicalized into cult-like ideology. By the way, this isn't an advertising spot, but those who are interested in the Bible but aren't really sure about religion or church, Dennis Prager has a book, The Rational Bible, that would be a great start. I've heard good things about it, and I've heard it's not necessarily a book anchored in faith, but it's written for those who consider themselves rational people or are curious about, the Word of God. But yeah, but the church is made up of people, American people. So why shouldn't it be involved? All shapes, sizes, all skin pigments, all kinds of backgrounds, people, American people. Those American people have equal freedoms and protection under the law, and even more specifically, under the Constitution, freedom of religion. Christians are people too. And, by the way, are the people who, through long-time persecution from governments throughout history, ended up becoming the bedrock of the greatest country in the world that the world's ever seen, the United States of America. And you enjoy all of its treasures. And you also obey its laws, which were conscripted from, the morality that came from the Judeo-West. And you follow those laws blindly, atheist or not, secular or not, what have you. So this is my argument, This nation was made possible by Judeo-Christian values, and not only that, but the very laws and systems, like I said, of this great American experiment came from the idea of people being made in the image of God. An experiment that went on to abolish slavery, cure mass poverty at a record-breaking rate, an experiment that heralded we the people as having inalienable rights granted to us by God, not government. The thing, Joe Biden, the thing. So be a good little tolerant leftist and stop discriminating against Christians in the church. The leftist wants to worship communism and vote, they get to. If the KKK wants to worship white people, unfortunately, and vote, they get to. If Black Lives Matter wants to worship Karl Marx and vote, they get to. If Hollywood actors want to worship the golden the golden globe, whatever, either or, they still get to vote. Unfortunately, these and many others have subverted Western culture, that from Judean Christian values down into the pits of socialism by way of a multicultural democracy. Whoever gets the most clicks or is given the biggest platform controls the flow of culture. It's not Christians or the church that has been given the biggest platform. It's CNN, MSNBC. It's been Hollywood media. It's been the shriveled old man that managed to win an election by hiding in his basement. Can you believe it? It's been people like Amber Heard who get the megaphone for victimized women, but the only thing she's managed to culture is a steaming pile in Johnny Depp's bed. She probably wipes with her hands, that one. Oh, what is it with evil people and poop? Amber Heard, Joe Biden pooped his pants in front of the Pope. Oh, man, where's the world? What is the world coming to? So Mitch McConnell and 14 other establishment rhino Republicans, including in my state, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, voted to pass more gun laws. How about that? Get ready, folks. They're coming for the guns pretty hard. The bill will expand background checks for those who are 21 to 18. So we don't know what that means exactly yet. They did this as a reaction to the Buffalo shooter and the Uvalde shooter. Clearly, they didn't care anything about this before, so there's obviously other motives. But yeah, we're getting to that. Here it is. The bill will it'll send money to states that enact red flag laws. So legal bribery for bad, unconstitutional law. Senator Graham and others, I'm sure, are thirsty for that government money. And it'll open up routes that can be taken concerning mental health. That's one of the other things that the bill do. Again, vague language, which will have anyone, who has an ex-wife be raided at dawn and their guns confiscated until further notice. I'm only half kidding, by the way. But do you see how vague the language is in this bill? I bet if you are a responsible gun owner, you too fall into the category that the language in this bill aims towards establishing. Lindsey Graham, I hope you know that you have just sealed your fate. I believe you can be recalled too, and I'm sure there's someone waiting in the wings to take your spot, someone who cares about our Second Amendment rights. You're a disgrace, Lindsey Graham. You're a war pig, and you just want them sweet, sweet grants from the government to slap arbitrary red flag laws on us South Carolinians. The grants that you're going to get that you voted for. Tell me that's not some bureaucratic bull. You're done, dude. Apparently, I'm not the only one. I met a lady at the gas station today while I was spending $50 to fill up my little car. Thanks, Joe Biden. She said South Carolina has done okay in all this mess, but one thing is for sure, Lindsey Graham's got to go. And I was very, very hopeful to hear this because I wasn't quite sure how many people were paying attention to this, wingnut. South Carolinians will not give up guns without a fight, Lindsey Graham. I think you know that. I've heard plenty of them say that exactly, and neither will I. Call Lindsey Graham and tell him what you think about his actions and let him know what his future as South Carolina Senator looks like now. That number again is 202-224-5972. That's 202-224-5972. Be calm, be collected, but be stern. Anyway, I appreciate you having me today. A lot going on. I'll keep you updated. Don't forget to go like. Don't forget to go subscribe. And thanks for listening to the Grime and Bros podcast. I'll be bringing you another one of these episodes as soon as I possibly can. Stay informed. Stay involved. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to subscribe, please. Yeah, good afternoon, good morning, and good night.